Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb Podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hi, it's Joanna here for a brand new episode, a brand new series. I am joined by my beautiful client, Carol Lee. You are watching the Into the LightWeb podcast, and this is the gift series. Hi, Carol. Come and introduce yourself and tell people what it is that you do in the world.
Hi, Joanna. Lovely to be here. I am, and I always get stuck here because I seem how I encapsulate it. So I'm an energy worker, I'm a kinesiologist, and I'm a nutritional therapist, and I'm also a sugar freedom coach. So in everything I do, most of those are in the mix because those are just words that express what I do.
I love that. I love that. So, Carol, you've been in my world for quite some time, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because let's talk about the sugar freedom first, because that was not something that you did when you first came into my world. You were kind of doing the kinesiology, and you were doing the energy work, and you were doing coaching and things like that, and nutrition. But through the work that we did together, this sugar freedom came percolated through, right? And it's been so transformative for you. I don't even know where to start with this conversation because I want to go to all the houses, but we'll try and start somewhere in the beginning.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about that journey of how that's percolated through, because it's been so life-changing.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has. I mean, it all started when I did your Get Selfish. Was that the Get Selfish course? Is that what it was called?
It was called Get Selfish, the Journey. And right. But it's now, the essence of that is now in my Unity program.
Right, okay. So I did that, and as part of that, I think I had to fill in a questionnaire about how I felt about different aspects of my life. And it's just, you know, how that is that the right word? Things happen just at the right moment. And I filled in this questionnaire, and like when it came to how I felt about my body, how I felt about how I ate, it was sort of flagged up quite loudly. And so even though, I mean, it's very interesting, food has always been my medicine. And when I say medicine, I mean the vehicle through which transformation happens for me. It's my lesson in this lifetime. So I thought that was very interesting. So I sort of put a little signal out to the universe that actually things needed to change in this area, because, you know, here I was 54 at the time, feeling not great, postmenopausal, thinking, you know, I feel SHIT about my body, how I look, and something has to change. And then through a series of random emails and different things, I got this little bit of information that made so much sense to me in terms of my food journey. And I just then decided, I realize now that all my life I've been addicted to sugar. But not just sugar, processed carbohydrates. The addicted to sugar bit wasn't new to me, but the realization that I was addicted to processed carbohydrates as well. And this affected and dysregulated how I ate. And I suddenly thought, oh my God, if actually I really want to transform myself and learn to love my body, then actually I need to change how I eat. And that means letting go of sugar and processed carbohydrate. So 1st of May 2017, that's what I did. I remember it's like one of those dates that I'll always remember because it was huge for me. It was huge, you know, because sugar was my best friend. It had been my comforter, my way I celebrated, the way I commiserated. It was a complete emotional relationship.
Yes. I love that. Let's just zero in on that, because that my comforter, that resonates with me as well. Like, it is so true, right? Like, here's some chocolates, you've done really well. Oh, I feel like shit, let's have some chocolate. How many occasions have we whipped out the sugar for let's make a big sugary dessert because it's your birthday, it's
having a happy day.
It's almost like this friend that's there in the good times and in the bad times. I love seeing it like that, because how much of a friend is it when it's kind of wreaking havoc inside the body?
Well, I always described it, once I stepped away from it, as like breaking away from a toxic relationship, because what I realized for me, now this is for me, I can only speak for me, but I see a lot of it in my clients and everything. When you step away from it and break that relationship, what you realize is actually what sugar does to the energy. It's not just the body, our energy, is it completely dampens it down. And I call it like the sugar shroud. It becomes like a dampening cloud over our energy. I sort of make, it's a bit like Harry Potter, the
cloak of invisibility.
That what it does is it really dampens. For me, what it did is it dampened my energy down completely. So I sort of lost track of myself, because I became lost in this abyss of, secret eating, hidden eating, emotional eating, and yes, I had really healthy meals. I knew about nutrition. I was a nutritional therapist. It wasn't that I didn't eat healthily. It's what I've topped it up with in between, what I overate. And it's, so when I realized that, sugar hadn't just affected my body, hadn't just given me this massive spare tire around my middle that I'd never had, hadn't just given me aches and pains, it had also dampened that intuitive spark within me as well. So
I found that with plant-based eating, when I did a 44-day juice cleanse, my channel had never been so clear it was just, it was so crystal clear. It took a little while to get there as my body detoxed, but once it was the connection to source was almost instantaneous. It was not even, there was no kind of almost like a little delay, like, please hold, before the connection kicks in. It was like whoosh, and it was there. And I've spoken to other mediums who, in fact, there was a page a while ago that I used to follow, which was mediums who juice. It was all about juicing mediums. And all of them, talked about the channel being so very, very clear, through the act of clean eating and juicing. So, it's definitely, a huge thing. And this led to an entire new career for you. And a big passion to help other people talk.
Because what I realized when I made this decision, that actually it was a very big thing for me and I couldn't do it by myself. So I set up a Facebook group called My Sugar-Free Journey, which was set up purely to support myself. And I just set it up with a few friends who I could then go on every day and say, oh my goodness, I'm craving this, I'm craving that, or I feel sick, I feel emotional, I've got a headache, all the stuff that happens when we let go of a substance that we're addicted to. And then obviously people started asking to join, and I think now we're over 2,500 people in that group.
Incredible.
So it's led me to then set up a little membership, a monthly membership that sort of mimics what I needed in those early days. That sort of close companionship, people who understood, because there's a lot of people out there in the world that either aren't aware that they're addicted to sugar or they're not addicted to sugar, so they don't have a clue what you're talking about,
and a lot of people don't even see sugar as an addictive substance.
No.
And let's face it, we'd all be horrified if like heroin or crack or something like that was available in every supermarket shelf and beside every till of every small shop that you went to, and things like that. And it is as addictive as that. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's like people don't know unless they try to stop, and then they go, well, that was strange, and I can't just stop. Why have I got a headache from hell for the last 2 days? That's called withdrawal.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. I love this journey. One of the things that you talk about a lot, which I really love, and obviously we know each other's work from being in each other's worlds for a long time, and I love that you talk a lot about being nourished, and this is one of the things that we've been talking about in the gift as well, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here as one of the guests, because you look at food. A lot of people look at food for lots of reasons. And again, the food's the friend, isn't it? The friend that's always there for you in your good times and in your bad times and things. But looking at food as what will nourish me. That was what will nourish me from the food world, of what will nourish, me, my body, what will nourish who I am, the nourishment of that. So tell me a little bit about that aspect of how you view the sort of nourishment part, because I love that, because this is something.
I mean, it's interesting what I noticed through working with people and listening to people when they talk about food and sugar in particular, is that it's when we talk about sweetness can come from food, but it also can come from life. And that often people eat sweet foods because they're looking for some sweetness in their life, if you like.
Yeah.
So and everything I do is based around the Chinese 5 elements, and sweetness sits in the earth element, which is also where the pancreas sits, which is very interesting because that's about how we process physical sweetness. So I often say to people, I encourage people in my group and say, what is sweet in your world? What is nourishing you in your world? What's nourishing your soul in your world? Because if people can find soul food, if you like, rather than physical food.
Oh, I like that. Soul food. That's,
yeah. And for me, I was thinking a few weeks ago, my partner was in the polytunnel putting some onions in, digging in there, and I was sat there in a chair and the hens came in and they were scratching around, and I just felt so full of and nourished with absolute joy in the simplicity of that moment. And that's a different sort of nourishment. That's a very satisfying nourishment. That eating
you can even just feel the contentment of that little description. Yeah. You can see it, yes.
Yeah, and it's like eating a bar of chocolate. I mean, there isn't any nourishment in a bar of chocolate, but as a sugar addict, I used to believe there was. It did something to me.
I think in a way it brings to me like an idea of a Kabbalic concept of there being light and false light. And real light, you can look back on it when you've created and connected to the source of light. You can tell that story about the hen scratching and John in the polytunnel and everything, right? And every time you tell the story, you reconnect to that light. It's true. It's awesome. When you eat the chocolate, you connect to a form of light, but it's not the light that's connected to the endless source. So you eat the chocolate and in the moment you feel good, you feel nice. It's like, oh, this is nice. You tell the story of eating the chocolate later on, it's nothing. There's no connection. There's no light anymore. The light was false light. You were connecting to the void. Yeah. And it was false light. And this Kabbalic concept is something that I see play out quite a lot in people, that there is kind of almost like two light sources. One is the true light source, the endless source, which is source. The other one is kind of like a type of light that humans have made. It's like when you've said your piece and you're all like, but really you're coming from the ego. And in the moment you feel like a rock star, but you get out of there and then you're like, that's a total bitch. I really did not do myself proud there. And, in hindsight, you look back and there's no light to connect with anymore. And I think that's one of the things that I see in the journey that you facilitate for others, is how you're really reconnecting them to source, and how you're really reconnecting them back into true light, true sweetness. And when they connect to that sweetness, the sweetness is forevermore. You look back, you can tell that story 100 times, and every time you tell it, you will connect into that feeling that we're part of it.
And it's a heart feeling. It's
absolutely.
It comes from this heart chakra place and just goes like that, and it's not about anything in the world apart from an internal generated feeling of sweetness. It's not about money. You can't buy that anywhere in the world, that experience. Whereas you can buy a ton of chocolate and have a momentary buzz.
Yes.
Or a momentary dampening down of a shitty feeling that you don't want to feel. I think
this is something that Brene Brown's talked about, which I always find is, and this is something that, I love to, that had a real profound effect on me in her work, when she said you can't selectively numb.
Right.
And so, if you dampen down maybe a crappy feeling, any good feelings that you had, you just dampen them as well.
Totally.
And is you can't select. So if you're using, and in my world, people use all sorts, they use television, food, obviously, alcohol, another one's huge, there's lots of different things. Social media is another massive dampener. Of dampening down our energy field, but again, selectively numbing, and we can't selectively numb. So unfortunately, as we numb all things, we become numb.
The shroud of invisibility, that cloak of invisibility.
Yes. Oh my God, I love this. So tell us a little bit about, because also as well, the other thing as well that I'm really interested to chat to you about is your creative kinesiology that you do. Because I've mentioned this creative kinesiology to other people, because obviously I've experienced it with you. And some people are like, oh, my kinesiologist didn't do it that way. And I love your form of creative kinesiologist, because I really love, it's like a little mini adventure in your energy. It's like you take a little tour into the energy fields. Tell us a little bit about that, your journey with kinesiology. I know you've been an energy worker in like 3 decades, we'll just say that.
My first training was in acupuncture 30 years ago or something.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is before it was cool.
It was definitely, I've always been, left to center, as it were, and I've always been an energy worker, I was always the odd one, but so creative kinesiology, it's funny because it has the word kinesiology. And that's why lots of people say, oh, that's not my experience of kinesiology. So kinesiology simply means, the thing that joined all kinesiologies together is, muscle testing, getting the yes and no answer from the body, where the body, the deep body, the 90% of us that holds the inner wisdom. So, and when I'm working online, I would use a pendulum to get a yes and a no answer. Now, creative kinesiology is definitely the most out there kinesiology, because you get lots of kinesiology that's very protocol based, whereas creative kinesiology is creative, it's exploratory, it's like let's go on a journey. It's exactly that, let's go on a journey. So somebody brings something they want to explore to the session, or they may not have a clear knowledge of what it is, they just know they're feeling uncomfortable about something on some level. And then what we do is we ask the body for guidance, because the body always knows the answer. Our intuitive wisdom always knows the answer, always knows the next step. But our brain and our mind is so loud that we can tell ourselves so many stories based on past experiences that then sort of throw us under the bus, or, you know, it's like a red herring on a map. It takes us off down the journey.
Takes us on a little mini tangent.
Yeah, it's like absolutely takes us off. So what kinesiology does, creative kinesiology, it sets the intention to explore an issue, and then basically I hold the space, and then we go on a journey by asking questions, and the answers come. I have loads of files here. For example, this is kinesiology file, that you remember these, Jo, where you know, we're looking things up. I have books, I have oracle cards, and we just ask for the next step, because all we ever need to know in our life for everything is just what's the next step. And that will then, so we get an oracle card and it talks about, I don't know, grief or something, grief, and that might spark a memory, because what it does, it's like a hook that brings stuff up from the unconscious. So we're like taking steps forward, and then we get to some sort of resolution about what is underneath this issue, what is underneath this maybe lack of sweetness in your life, where's it come from? And it's like, okay, that's where it's come from. And the person will know, they'll have a deep sense of knowing that actually that makes perfect sense to me. And often people say, that's just so weird. I was only talking about that last week, or gosh, something happened at the weekend. I can't believe you said that. And they'll say, how did you know that? I said, I didn't know anything. That's your body just showing us. You know, it's, and then
the connections between everything.
Yeah.
And this is one of, I love your model that you use, because it resonates so much with me, because I see everything as interconnected. I see it all as connected. And even in my own life coaching practice and in my own business coaching practice, you know, the problem on the surface that is presented is rarely the actual issue. It's usually a deep rooted, it has the core. Yeah. And a lot of people, you know, there's a huge industry out there that just treats that surface.
Yeah, no, totally.
Rather than the core, the root of the problem. So it really resonated with me, your model that you use to get to that root and really look at that root issue. And sometimes it can be the strangest things, can't it? It can be a flipping comment your parents said when you were like 4 years of age or something, you know? Yeah.
That you don't have a conscious memory of it until that hook goes in and pulls it up. And then once we know, sometimes all our body desperately wants is to be witnessed. And just the fact that you've said the words out loud and acknowledged it, that can be the healing. And otherwise, there might be like an energy tool or technique that uses it. I mean, I use a lot of acupressure points, and the body itself will choose the acupressure point. This is the point that you need right now to create that transformation. And I love it because acupuncture points make me so excited. But the thing about acupuncture points is they all have a number. They're on a meridian. They all have a number, and they all have a soul or a spirit. So the body chooses the number. And then I look it up in my book, and I read to the client, what is the spirit of the point? What's the soul of the point? What transformation is it happening? And what you find every time is it describes exactly what the person came in with. It's just magical. And then just holding the points, they do it. I sometimes do it as well, because I often feel the change myself. And that's the process. It's so, I want to say, gentle, sensitive. Doesn't mean people don't cry sometimes, but that's just like a release. You know, it's a beautiful process. It's a beautiful process. And, you know, I feel blessed to be able to do it. And, you know, I had an amazing teacher that helped me understand. But also it's a gift, because all I do, and I say all I do because I hold the space for that to happen. Now, you obviously holding space is a big job, but it's not like a protocol. Well, I know, okay, I need to do this now and I need to do this now. It's like holding a space for the body to have its say. for the body to ask for what it needs. And yeah, absolutely, it's beautiful.
And that comes right back round in this beautiful circle of what does the body need to be nourished, really, in that moment, right? That nourishment again. It is. I think, through coaching sessions that we've done and stuff like that, is I remember one particular session where we realized it was all about nourishment for you, but it was on multiple levels. It wasn't just, what we eat, but it was that soul level too. It was that emotional level. It was all of it, and that being in that beautiful energy.
And getting the polytunnel experience.
The
polytunnel experience.
I'm telling you, if you follow Carol, you are going to get some amazing updates on chickens and polytunnels. But trust me when I tell you, it's absolute soul food, as Carol says, soul food. It is. It's lovely to see, and it's lovely to, to see that appreciation of nature. I think as well. I mean, that's something that I'm very mindful of. That the Schuyler call it the Great Divorce. It's a one-sided divorce of where we have divorced ourselves from the planet, and that we are no longer have the connection that we once had with Mother Earth. And in doing so and not having that connection, it's created the void that has basically opened up for the abuse of the planet. Whereas before, when we were a lot more connected, so they call it the Great Divorce, and they call it the one-sided divorce. And I think also as well, the one-sided divorce appears in us human beings as this space of energy where we're not nourished and we're wanting, and we spend a lot of money on trying to fill that void within. We're scrambling, and we're looking to everybody. Will you fill this void? Will this bag fill this void? Oh, look at this designer thing. Will this fill this void? And it's not that having those things and having beautiful luxury things around you is a bad thing, but it's from the intention that you shop. Are you shopping it to fill a void? Are you shopping it for any other reason than you appreciate the beauty of it? And when we actually deconstruct that and look at that, and where we're spending our money and what we're doing, what's the intention behind it? Is there, and I remember, in my void years, shall we call them, I had a lot of designer stuff and things like that. And, and the intention behind all of that was to make me feel better. And it was, and it was literally feeding the void within. But as soon as a new season came out, well, that wasn't good enough anymore. I wanted the next thing, and it was that, I think the Buddhists call it the hungry mouth. The hungry ghost, that's what I call it. It's like that feeling of never full.
Never full. No. And it's so interesting when you talk about designer clothes, because I do like nice clothes. I've never been a designer person, but my sister said, I went out for a walk and I've got this set of clothes that I wear often when I go for a walk. If I meet my son, because he's got this very rumbustious dog that will jump up at you. My sister said, you look a bit like a bag lady today. I said, yeah, it's great, isn't it? Honestly, I've got these layers of clothes. And I felt, and I don't care, I just feel so happy and so content. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense? It's like
sense. Absolute sense.
And
I went on my own, what I call my Get Selfish journey. As I went on my own Get Selfish journey, which produced the work that has had these incredible ripple effects and things. But it was that learning to be content as myself, with not requiring anything from the outer world whatsoever. Literally, you could give me a plastic bag and I could have been happy as Larry wearing it, like a big black bin bag. Not my first choice of clothes, but it would not define me. Whereas before, I had so much in the outer world that defined me. And when I went on this, well, I didn't decide, I felt I was very much thrust upon this journey after my burnout of realizing if I was going to save my life and going to survive this, I had to learn to nourish myself. I had to learn what I needed, and I had to learn to look after myself. And what I call it is being a good custodian of myself. What did it take to be a good custodian of myself? And I started to look at the human, what I call now the human avatar. And I started to look at that and think, what would it take to be an amazing custodian of this amazing body I've been given, this amazing gift I've been given of my human avatar? And what does it take to be a good caretaker of that? And, you know, and looking at all the aspects. And I love that. And it's such a juicy question, because once you start digging in that field, it starts producing gold nuggets for yourself.
It does.
That just begin to enrich your life, you know.
And it's really interesting because that's just jogged my memory about something that I really want to say that's so important, because part of my sugar-free journey that was such a big thing for me was getting to love my body and getting to accept my body. And I always say to my sugar-free people, yes, I did lose quite a lot of weight when I started my sugar-free journey, but I'm by no means a gym bunny or skinny at all. You know, I'm a UK size 14. That's not skinny, it's pretty average, really. But I have learnt to love my body as it is. I'm a middle-aged woman with saggy, baggy bits and cellulite, but I now love my body because I look after it and love it with the food I eat. And that's, you know, because there's such a culture out there about you need to be a size 0 or a size 4 or whatever, and it's not. My body works beautifully for me. I can garden all day, I can walk those coastal paths and, you know, keep going. And why would I not love my body that does that for me? Why would I not love it? And stopping sugar helped me get in touch with that, you know, beauty of it somehow. And
I love that you brought this up, because it jogs a memory for me as well, actually. And I remember in the first part, well, as before my Get Selfish journey, as I was getting every warning sign that the divine could give me, that something seriously was going to enter my life, like something huge was going to go and enter my life and take me down, basically, if I didn't change my ways. And of course I ignored every single warning sign, and then I hit the burnout. But I remember telling this story about how, and it was a story that ran in my head of how crappy my body was. It was like, oh, it's just falling apart and it's this, and it got so much blame. It got so much blame. Never mind that, you know, like I worked 24/7. I stressed permanently, you know, never mind. I did all of these things to myself. No. It was my body's, like my body was letting me down somehow. And in my Get Selfish journey, going on that journey, that personal inner word journey into my inner world, and really discovering myself and really discovering who I was and what made me tick and how I could nourish myself. That was the beginning of changing that story that had been such a negative story, which I absolutely believe contributed to all of my health problems as well. So as I went on this tremendous healing journey, really healing my body, that to all accounts on the outside world looked like it was falling apart, but no wonder, because it was never being given anything that would help to hold it together, you know. And I even spoke to it harshly. So I would have wanted to have bits drop off too and run away, you know. And we're probably like, I'm out of here. So but now looking back, and I just remember reversing that story and seeing how my body had always been my friend. That was huge. That was like really, really huge. I remember laying in the hospital on the 3rd day. That was my big epiphany day of having my multiple organ failure, laying in the hospital bed and having the epiphany that my body did what I had refused to do in 7 years, which was to give me a timeout. my body had done that for me. And it was humbling, because I was so confronted by my own crappy behavior of constantly pushing, constantly hustling, constantly moving forward, and to be so confronted and then realize and even though I collapsed in multiple organ failure and it does not feel, it does not look like it was gentle, my body brought me to the floor. And I remember when I collapsed, it felt like I was falling in slow motion. In fact, it felt like the floor was coming up to meet me. And in a way, when I look at that, when I have that thought of that memory, it was almost gentle. It was almost like the floor was coming up to meet me. And the body was like, enough now, enough. And it was this beautiful energy. And then as I started to heal, and my body started to heal, I realized the absolute gift of that, of that it just me changing my behavior was giving this body this opportunity to start healing. And all my body had ever done was try to be on my side. And then I remember at one point going through, having gone through a lot of emotional healing, having gone through a lot of stuff, I thought I was really, really good. And then I was massively confronted with something that was very, very jarring, very confronting. And again, remembering how my body held me through that, and how my body had been willing to hold that and keep it out of my consciousness, if you like, until such a time that I was strong enough in body, mind, and soul to deal with it. And realizing it was such a gift. But again, realizing it was a body that held that, because it was not in my consciousness until I was at a stage where I was so ready to look at this, and go deep with it and do the shadow work around it. And and it was just an incredible thing. And it's such beautiful deep work. And the body is, I think that's such a huge shift for so many people, to say that your body's actually always been your friend.
And it's like, you've had your friend there, and you're just mean to it all the time. So much meanness. You insult it, and then you also feed it bad food. It's it's like being really abusive.
It's like trying to put sugar in your petrol tank, like literally your actual petrol tank. We all know that that's how to seize an engine very quickly, so please do not try that at home. Disclaimer, I don't somebody's ex has gotten sugar in their tank. I hope not, please not. But yes, I think this is the thing, and it's such a you're so right. We insult it, we treat it badly. That was another thing that happened on my epiphany day in the hospital, was realizing that extreme self-abuse had got me there. And my drug of choice wasn't drugs or alcohol or anything that society judges and frowns on. My drug of choice was a drug that society praises you for, how hard you can work. And that was my huge addiction. I was so addicted to working, and having to walk with that addiction was because, well, I suppose if I really, really wanted to, I probably could have figured out a way not to work. But it was, so it wasn't an addiction I could completely walk away from, and things like that. But for me, it was learning the power of sacred rest.
Yeah, totally.
Learning not to hustle, ease, joy, and flow, all that jazz, all those things, and learning them as sacred practices for my daily life. And it's something that I feel that you really, really have embodied. And I definitely feel like it's part of the gift energy. But what I feel like what you've really embodied is creating that life that you've got your polytunnel and your chickens, and you grow your own veg, and you live your life on your terms, and you've got this business that supports your life, not this business that you work in so that maybe you could have a life, but a business that supports your life, which is beautiful creation. And I tell us a little bit about, your kind of daily days and stuff that you do on a daily basis and things, how life kind of looks for you.
So I always get up early. Well, less so in the winter. I feel really blessed that I can follow the seasonal energy in how I work. So in the summer, for example, I'll be awake and feeling on it by 6 o'clock in the morning, mostly. Mm-hmm. And the hens are such a blessing to me. Poor hens, though, they're in lockdown at the moment because of avian flu. So they're having their own sort of lockdown. So that just means that they're in the run. They've got a run. They've got space. They're all good. But I still have to let them out every morning. So I start every morning by going out into the garden and letting the hens out in the coop. And I always go, morning, girls. So I go around the corner. You must be mad. And I let them out and I have a little chat to them. So it always starts and I make a cup of tea and then I go back and sit in bed and have my cup of tea. And sometimes I take photos in the morning because photos for me, I share a lot of photos, and I don't take photos because I think, ooh, this would be lovely on social media. I take photos because for me it's a mindfulness practice in a way, because just looking at something with that eye of beauty, noticing the beauty, and then I want to capture it. So that could involve that. And then I usually start, depends, Mondays and Fridays are what I call my light days. So they are days. So I sort of ease in on a Monday. I have like a little meeting with some business buddies on a Monday that I met through your group. Mm-hmm. So that's really lovely and it gets me going. And so I might do social media. Actually, yesterday I did see a client. She popped up and said, you haven't got a last minute appointment. And I thought, actually, yes, that would be nice. Because I love my clients. And so I did that. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are my heavier client days. But because I work from home, I'm looking out now and I can see the fields and my polytunnel that, I can go and do stuff in between, go up, collect the eggs. In the summer, I might poke around in the garden for a little bit. And then Friday, again, is another light day. Always write my newsletter on a Friday morning, often sat in bed. And again, I love doing my newsletter because it feels like a rounding up of my week, if you like. But, sometimes in the week, if it looks like it's a nice day and I've not got so much in the diary, I'll go out for a walk, go to the coast, have a walk. So for me, the wealth in my life is not about the money. It's about how I can nourish my soul every day. And, food is a big part. It's really interesting now. I'm not a sugar addict anymore. Well, I'm a recovering sugar addict because it could be sparked at any time. I do know that. I'm much less interested in food. I do love food, but it's much more functional. It doesn't have that charge anymore.
Emotional bond so much.
Yeah, I feel that feels like that's changed.
Yeah,
because I'm feeling a bit hungry now, so I might go and have some eggs on rye toast shortly with a bit of avocado. Lovely, completely nourishing. Eggs from my happy hens, who some magical reason continue to lay all through the winter. I do say, girls, seriously, give yourself a break. You really don't have to lay every day. So that's sort of my week. And then weekends, go for a walk, go to the coast, potter in the garden, do jobs. I feel very, very blessed. My partner's now retired. So, I don't want to retire. I've told him really clearly, I love my work too much. I love my life. Give it another 10 years, I might cut down a bit. But, I feel like I need, lead an expansive life. I feel very lucky, very blessed. And it's interesting. I know you talk about don't hustle. I try not to. It's not my natural way to be. But, so like when I've, it's so yes, I do have to share things, say, hey, this is the opportunity that's happening at the moment, this is what I'm sharing, this is the program, you can come and join my membership, come and be part of this. But I'm much more relaxed about it nowadays. I think I tell people if they want to come, they come. I think I've let go of that desperate feeling, that when you first
call it
start.
the chasing feeling, like trying to chase the thing inside, and it's a very destructive feeling.
And it's interesting.
It comes from that that feeling of never enough, always never enough, and constantly having to strive. Instead of being in that magnetism of I have enough, I do enough, I am enough.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know if you remember, I recently discovered through your LightWeb and stuff that I'm in human design, I'm a projector, which means that actually what projectors do is they just stand and they project, and people are drawn to that energy. So it's to be that energy is what I try to embody, really.
I could have predicted that you were a projector.
Did you?
I could, and I actually think now I'm looking at it, I'm actually laughing because you've literally got that ideal projector life, because projectors can sometimes do like 4 hours worth of work in a week, and then the rest being focused on things that they love, and what they could achieve in those 4 hours could be the same as what a mani-gen would need to maybe do 20 hours off. But or a generator working maybe more hours because that's how they function, whereas a projector, when a projector is very, very aligned, it's quite a spectacular energy because it can be very magnetizing. And it's just by putting out a few bits of very important pieces that then create that magnetic resonance.
I mean, I work much more than 4 hours a week, and when I found that out, it made a lot of sense, and I thought, okay, this is my growth edge here, to really sit in that energy. And because I can be a workaholic, as I would describe a workaholic, not the sort of workaholic that you were, but my own workaholic, and it can make me very tired. Because that's the thing. This is
a modern day epidemic, right? Of especially for entrepreneurs that work from our homes, right? Let's face it, our offices are in our homes, right? So we're constantly, and then it's not that, it's not like this work is like nose to the grindstone. Like, this is our passion, this is our love. So you're cooking, you're doing something, your brain sparks of something, and the urge to put yourself in front of your computer is a very, very real one. And for me, what the practice has become is, what was my intention for today? If my intention for today was a rest day, then there is no screen time in that sense. And I have to practice rest as though it is a spiritual practice. So a spiritual practice like meditation, for instance, I go to the meditation pillow, I sit down, I do my meditation, I do the stint, I enter into that altered state of consciousness, I move into my being. That meditation doesn't really happen unless I create an action around it. Rest, for me, it's not a natural state of being. I'm a manifesting generator, so my energy is very much naturally wanting to go anyway. So for me, it's actually been placing that practice into my life as a conscious, intentional. So if my intention for that day it's a rest day, and the urge is strong to create and make, it's the notepad for me, and I make a couple of notes so that I can come back to it when the intention for me is to work, so that I stay in the vibes of my original intention, which was to rest. And if I'm able to hold that practice, my work becomes so much more potent. If I don't, you get back into that workaholic, you're literally feeding a workaholic pattern.
Yeah,
that's my experience.
Yeah,
and it's one of these things. But I feel you, that urge when you work from home and you love what you do, that urge can be strong. And I think that was my biggest downfall in my earlier businesses, because it wasn't that in my earlier businesses I hated every single day. It became like that as my body got more and more tired, but I loved what I did. And there was nothing like, especially when I had my shops and things like that, there was nothing that seeing somebody come in and seeing how transformative clothes could be for them, and helping them to find the perfect outfit that really flattered their bodies, and and they would leave the store feeling $1 million, and it was a beautiful thing. And those days were amazing. I mean, those days were absolutely amazing. And I would feel so satisfied by that work until the mind started taking over for me. And I realized that some of these women had deeper problems than an outfit would fix. Some of these women, and I remember the change, the pivot point for me so clearly from my shops, of when I knew I was done with the energy of my shops. I had this lovely woman, and she was always like, because we lived in a small town, so I would always be like driving home for work or something like that, and I would see her out in her training stuff, and she was always running, like always got her trainers on and her, and she will have her hoodie on, and she was, in her yoga pants running. And I remember her coming into the shop, and I had this Italian brand called Killa, and they made the most incredible jeans. Like, they were like, oh my God, if you fitted a pair of Killa jeans, like you had just bought the jeans that they could bury you in, you just bought jeans for life, and they were amazing. And I remember her coming out, and she was in a size 27, which is a UK 9. So not a 10, not an 8, very, very slim woman. They fitted her perfectly. They looked amazing. And she pinches 2 pieces of skin. Now, I've always been a bigger woman, and she pinches 2 pieces of skin together. There is nothing between those pieces of skin. It's literally 2 pieces of skin at her waist. And she says to me, do you think these make me look fat? And they sat like a glove on her. They were absolutely beautiful. They looked so good. And I said, no, they look really great. And in that moment, I had this really, really sinking feeling inside of myself. And I wanted to tell her to go to the fitting room to take them off, and I would make her a cup of tea. And I really wanted just to sit her down and ask her what the real issue was. Because I realized that a woman that looks like that trains as hard as that, there must be an underlying issue of unhappiness, because she was so deeply unhappy with the way that she looked. And what she saw in the mirror and what I saw in the mirror standing next to her, looking at her, was night and day. They were completely different things. I thought she looked gorgeous, and she looked at herself and she thought she was fat and she looked hideous. And, and it was that moment of realizing this is more than what clothes can fix. But I also realizing that I had the skills. And obviously I was picking up a lot of her intuitively, because I've always had my intuitive gifts. And it was just that deep spiraling disappointment in myself that I could truly help this woman, but it isn't with jeans. And that was the moment I knew I was done with my shops. I was like, I've got to answer this higher calling to help people. I've got to answer this higher calling. And that was the moment. But then pressures, work, I was a diehard. I was like, I will see this to the bitter end. And of course, the bitter end came with the multiple organ failure burnout for me. But I'd known 2 years prior to that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I started my working career. I was a social worker for 18 years. I don't know if you knew that.
Yes.
And yes. I remember, working with families and thinking, oh my goodness, all I'm doing is sticking plasters on gaping wounds. I want to work at a deeper level with these people. Yes. What I can do in this work is not enough. And that's when, acupuncture came into my life, and this idea of working with energy and helping people transform themselves through changing their energy. So that was like when I was 25, I had that moment of, working at this top level just isn't enough. I want to get down into
went through the same thing, and it's so interesting because it's so interesting. It is so interesting, and realizing, having that realization that you could actually do more, and having that realization that, that it was, for me, it became a drive inside of me. It was like, I want to be part of the solution. I have this saying, you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And I realized that, at that time, I started to realize I was maybe part of the problem, facilitating the void, which I now know as the void, is instead of facilitating the source. And I thought, I want to be part of the solution to this. I don't want gorgeous women to look in the mirror and think that they look hideous or that they look fat, and and judge themselves in such a harsh way, in the way that woman stood and was completely analyzing and judging herself. She was really sad. I literally heard her mind picking herself to pieces. And I thought, and she was, by all accounts, she was probably doing everything right. She was eating right. She was training, but the intention behind all of that was to fill a void, and the piece that was missing was self-love. And it was such a for me, what I call now in my world, an agent of change. And I'm sure that many of those families were amazing agents for you to activate you into this alignment that you're in now.
And that transformation is interesting, because I always said that I went into social work because I couldn't help my own family. I went in to support other families, and then when I went in and had my own acupuncture treatment, I started to transform myself from the inside. And that's so it all starts with your own healing, doesn't it? Essentially,
it is literally the essence of Get Selfish. It's all got to come from within. If it doesn't come from within, then you are left wanting by searching in the outer world. It's got to be an internal energy that you begin to embody, and you start to create the embodiment of that. I love this conversation, Carol. You know me, I can talk for Britain. We could be here all day chatting, because this for me is soul food. This is soul food for me. I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell people where's your favorite place to hang out on the interwebs? And we're going to pop all your links and everything in the show notes. But just if someone's heard Carol, you've been really inspired, you're like, I want to check Carol out now. Go and tell us where they can find you.
So my main Facebook business page is Carolee Natural Health. If you're interested in sugar freedom, finding sugar freedom, then my Sugar Free Journey group on Facebook is the place to come. And then on Instagram, I'm Sugar Free Natural Foodie. And that's where you get pictures of my hens and my walks by the sea. And that sort of stuff as well. I'm sort of getting used to Instagram. I did a reel yesterday, actually, sort of by accident, but hey.
Sort of by accident. I love that.
Oh, that's nice.
It is so epic. Epic. Thank you so much, Carol, for joining us today. I really appreciate this conversation, and just feels so good. So thank you so much for inviting me.